Rock and roll drumming. Over the last 6 decades, that could mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. To be able to understand anything with any depth, it helps to know the history of where things came from and how they developed. Rock and roll had dangerous connotations, a sexual nature, a spirit of rebellion against the old guard and the status quo. There are many books written about the birth of rock and roll that are fascinating, and I encourage you to do some homework on the topic. I'll cover a few quick ideas here for the moment, but many of the early rock drummers came from jazz or country music that had a swing. There was a natural swing to their playing, and it wasn't always true straight eighth notes. There was a natural, almost half-swung shuffle feel to their playing that rubbed a certain way over the piano that was playing straight eighth notes. That was the rub of rock and roll. So there were two elements working together. When you listen to Earl Palmer, one of the architects of rock and roll, he's playing with Little Richard, playing like a dotted eighth feel against the straight eighths that Little Richard was playing on the piano. Again, Earl Palmer came from the world of jazz, and this new feel was born. It's kind of like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that was kind of the Big Bang, and as rock music progressed through the 50s and 60s, the beats and different feels that were born along the way are still the building blocks of this art form. The DNA in those early grooves survived through the decades and are still alive and well and are still relevant. In our first installment, we looked at the 2 and 4 backbeat feel with 1 and 3 on the bass drum, eighth notes on the hi-hat. Physically, that's almost as basic as it gets, but what I hope was revealed to you was that doing it well is not so easy. And there are so many ways that you can express yourself within those parameters of how you hit the drums, how you hit the snare drum, how you play the hi-hats. And why do certain players sound so good just playing time? For one, they want to sound great playing time. They aren't concerned with playing a lot of fancy stuff or showing off chops. They want the music to feel and sound good for the other musicians, but more importantly, for the listener. Look at Steve Gadd. Chops for days. When he plays time, it simply rules. Jeff Porcaro, his time just rules. Steve Jordan, same thing. Is that any wonder why these guys were and are on so many records? I digress, as I often do, but I get really excited talking about this stuff, and I can't wait to share it all with you. So let's look at some early beats and how they developed, and I'll say right now that I'll have a couple massive chapters on various shuffle and swing feels coming up. So I won't be covering those right now in this installment. We'll be looking largely at straight feels and ones with just a touch of swing. I'd also like to quickly mention that when I play rock time, I'm thinking from the bottom up. What does this mean? It means I'm focusing on the bass drum pattern and playing it strongly. Normally, I want the same density from the bass drum as I do the snare drum. Do-ga, do-do-ga, do-ga, do-do-ga. And I think a lot of young drummers or those with less experience on the instrument tend to play top-heavy and light on the bass drum. I can detect an amateurish feel sometimes, and look, that's okay. We all have to begin somewhere. I'm just trying to provide a head start for the younger players by mentioning this. When you play, you have to mix yourself right here from the drums, which is ground zero. Get your balance together and play with confidence. A band wants a confident drummer, not someone who plays things like this. Is this okay? Is this right? Is this right? You want to throw it down. Okay, so let's call 2 and 4 on the snare and 1 and 3 on the bass drum home bass, and let's play it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, notice I'm kind of moving a little bit here, and it's okay to kind of dance to your groove. If you can't dance to your groove, there's a chance that no one else can either. So it's okay adding a little bit of this in there, okay? So, playing all 4 quarter notes on the bass drum, also known as 4 on the floor, became a popular option to play over that type of groove. Let's hear that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, The twist beat became popular, and there are very many variations of that, of course, but the main part of the twist beat, as this developed in the early 60s, is the accented two and on the snare drum. Do ga ga ga, do ga ga ga. Side note, I remember that my grandparents had an old organ from the early 60s that had a rhythm box built into it. And it had this twist beat, but it was labeled as teen beat. So here's the teen beat twist beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. Some variations that emerged from the twist beat was playing the and accent later in the bar on 4 and. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we had the feel with the accents on both the 2 and the 4 and. 1, 2, 3, 4. You get the idea. So getting back to the twist beat, the whole surf music thing was developing, so the tempo was picked up and had a bit more of a drive. The beach movies of the late 50s and the early 60s gave birth to the Safaris and the Beach Boys. So when I played with Brian Wilson on his first ever solo tour in 1999, I had to key in on a lot of these elements because I wanted to bring this music alive. When I was faced with the daunting task of having to play songs like, I Get Around and Surfin' Safari and Surfin' USA. These are songs that have literally been played millions of times by every bar band, wedding band, guys learning how to play their instruments in the garage. So I didn't want it to sound like we were just punching the clock. This music had to come alive. This had to leap off the stage to the audience and convey, this is the dude who wrote those songs and sang on a lot of them, and this is live for you right now. So famously on Drumeo, people quote this to me all the time when I played like 1, 2, 3. That had to convey we're in the car and we're going to the beach and we're gonna see chicks and we're drinking beers. It had to have that spirit of fun that had to come alive for these pieces of music. So that's what I try to do when I play the drums. So at the same time that was going on in America, and you had Hal Blaine and Earl Palmer and these guys playing those records, at the same time the Mersey beat thing was happening in England. And I'll talk about this later in the shuffle segment, but I feel this highlights kind of the and two, and it's kind of a cousin of the twist beat. So it's the swinging cousin of the twist beat. So the Mersey groove is kind of like All My Lovin' by the Beatles. And close your eyes. And also a kind of polite rock feel emerged, and the snare accent is on the and of 2, with the right hand kind of playing 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4 and. So I kind of had this type of thing, like. So with this type of feel, it's not hard to see the line from this to a more funkier James Brown type of thing by adding in some ghost notes. And by the way, we'll have a huge chapter on ghost notes coming your way soon. But I'll play this polite groove, and then I'll meld it into the funky version. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's get into a series of straight rock beats that always work and that everyone should know. And before we get into this, I'd like to bring up two things. First is that later in the series, we'll be looking at what I call the Rosetta Stone of 2 and 4, which goes through all the bass drum possibilities that exist in a 2 and 4 context. The second is that I realize that the more advanced viewers may already know what I'm about to go over, but remember that we have players with less experience watching too. And that stuff will come later, but you have to build your building on the ground floor. So that's what we're going to do here, so stay with me, okay? Let's look at 1-bar time feels. And when I say time feel, it's sort of like saying groove or beat. So getting back to home bass with the 2 and 4, 1 and 3, and this will be home bass. 1, 2, 3. Next, we'll add the bass drum on the and of beat 4, making the groove 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3. Now I'll add to this by playing the and 3, making the feel 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 2, got do, got do, got do, got do. Let's look at changing it up to 3 and, like this. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Do, ga, do, ga, do, ga, do, ga. And now we'll play this. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Do ga, do ga, do ga, do ga. With examples 4 and 5, we can add the on beats 2 and 4 with either the snare drum or the bass drum to play these commonly heard figures. So check it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'll play the bass drum on beat 1 and the and of beat 2. So 1, 2, and. 1, 2, and. Doom, ga, doom. Doom, ga, doom. Let's build on that by adding a bass drum on the and of beat 3, making the feel 1, 2, and 4. 1, 2, and 4. Do, ga, do ga, do ga, do ga. Now let's build on that and add a bass drum note on the and of beat 1, making it 1 and 2 and 4. 1 and 2 and 4. do do ga do ga do ga do ga. If we look back at example 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, doom ga, we can turn this into a bit of a boogaloo beat by adding 2 offbeat 16th notes from the left hand on the snare drum, on the of beat 2 and the E of beat 3, like this. Doom, ga. Let's play an example of this on the toms, slow it down, and play all quarter notes on the bass drum. This can be an effective murky type of feel. Check it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. And while we're here on the toms, I'd be remiss if I didn't include a few time feels like this one. Bass drum playing all 4 quarter notes, 8th notes on the floor tom, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Of course, we could do a number of different things to this feel, but a simple one would be by adding the twist beat vibe to it by playing the 4 and on the snare drum. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's look at a couple time feels where the snare is playing on all 4 quarter notes. And we'll play the bass drum on beat 1 and the ands of beat 3 and 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and gotten. Staying with the snare drum pattern on all 4 quarter notes. Let's play the bass drum note on all the 8th notes, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's keep this groove somewhat as it is, but go back to just 2 and 4 on the snare drum, and we'll play the bass drum on 1E, a 2E, a 3E, a 4E, a do do ga do 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 ga do 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 ga do 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 ga do. Let's bring in the occasional 16th note with the bass drum and look at a couple of examples. We'll play the bass drum on beat 1, the of beat 1, and the and of beat 2 like this. Doom, do ga doom, ga doom, do ga doom, ga doom, do ga doom, ga doom, do ga doom. Let's build on this and add a bass drum on the and of beat 3. Doom, do ga, doom, ga, doom, do ga, doom, do ga, doom, do ga do ga do ga do ga. Building still, let's add a 16th note to that last 8th note to make it and a into the backbeat, beat 4. Doom, do ga, 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 doom, do ga. And building still, let's add another 16th note on the and of beat 1, making it 1 and a for the first beat. Doom, do ga, 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 doom, do ga. Let's have a quick look at a few simple 6/8 time feels that evolved from the 50s that are basically still the same. And of course, there are tons of variations that we can do to these feels, but here's the basic feel. Bass drum on 1, snare drum or cross stick on 4. Hi-hats playing all 6/8 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can change the hi-hat ostinato, the repeated rhythm, to da 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 da. We can swing it or we can keep it straight. 1, 2, 3, 4. Building on this, we can add a bass drum on beat 3, making the groove 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like we did earlier, we can put a 16th note skip note right before beat 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we can play the bass drum 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Doom, doom, ga, doom, 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 ga, doom, 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 ga, do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are so many different beats and variations and tiny little things we can do to give them their own feel. I could go on and on. You begin to see that there are so many note possibilities, and with the Rosetta Stone segment coming up later, we'll look at all of the bass drum possibilities that can be played in a 2 and 4 context. We'll go over all of them. And once you see the quarter note, 8th note, and 16th note possibilities with your eyes, there's nothing to be worried about or concerned about. You'll master them all, I have no doubt. So just by playing these grooves we covered, you could have a career in the music business without knowing much else. When playing ragtime, these grooves, the ones that you can create with variables, they can carry you far. I still work on these, with or without a metronome, still trying to play these as best as I can. It's a never-ending journey, even with the simple stuff. Okay, let's focus on hands now. I'm going to show you a drumline type warm-up that there are many variations of, but here's a simple way to go through it. Now, first, I must have a little disclaimer about the drumline drum corps thing. Although I did have a very positive experience in high school in a very competitive and trophy-winning drumline, I very early on recognized that, oh, this is this for this, and it has nothing to do with the drum set. With drum corps and drumline, you have to play tight and rigid. That's the only way that you can get 5 or 10 snare drums to look in unison and to be tight and clean. And that is for drumline. But this instrument is all about looseness and open spaces and big, swirly, round motions. This is about freedom. Everything that drum corps is not. That's not about freedom. This instrument is about freedom. So it's very important to make that distinction. That it's like looking at Slash with a Les Paul and then Segovia on a nylon string acoustic guitar. Yeah, they both have 6 strings, but they're totally different things. That's the chasm, the divide between drumline and this. So it's very important to compartmentalize and understand that. So I'm going to be playing these with a little bit more of a looser feel than the the drumline vibe. So basically, we're going to go through and play 1 bar of 16th notes, and we're going to double on the 1, the E, the and the and we're going to put a bar of 16th notes in between each of those. Then it's going to be 2 doubles. We'll move those around. 3 all diddles, and then you're playing at the end. So I'll play it for you. It'll make more sense to hear it and see it written out. That's something that you can continue on doing over and over and build up the tempo until you're really kind of cooking on that. But that's a good way to really learn to pull out those doubles, those diddles. You can practice it slow. And really take your time getting a nice clean doubles until you're cooking on all. Okay, let's have a look at alternating flams. On a right flam, the right hand, that's the big note. So the left hits first on a right flam. On a left flam, the left is the big note, so the right hits first. And you can kind of work on spacing the flams so there's a little bit more space or they're a little tighter. Now let's play alternating flams, and I'm going to play it slow, and I'm going to build up the tempo a little bit. I want those to sound as close as they can, to being the same, even though they never will, because whenever you change the sticking, you change the articulation and you change the sound. So here's a quick advanced exercise where we'll play the rhythm scale, quarter note triplets, eighth note triplets, and 16th notes, all in alternating flams. 1, 2, 3, 4. Lastly, today, let's look at the flam tap. This rudiment is a right flam and a tap, left flam and a tap. Get your flam taps together as they work the hands symmetrically, and these are always part of my warm-up routine. Okay, it's assignment time. Beginners, learn intro grooves 1 through 7 and all 25 grooves that I played in the main body of this lesson. And play your alternating flams and flam taps, and begin your best to play the drumline doubles exercise. Pull out the doubles with the wrists and fingers. Do not rely on rebound. Intermediates, learn the intro grooves 1 through 7 and play through all 25 grooves and be able to give me one improvisational element over each one, whether it's changing the hi-hat ostinato or opening the hi-hat, or adding in ghost notes, or modifying the bass drum pattern somehow. Work on the drumline style doubles and be able to play them at a tempo of 100 beats per minute or higher, and be able to play alternating flam and flam taps at 120 beats or higher. Advanced players, learn intro grooves 1 through 7 and play all 25 grooves and be able to give me 2 improvisational elements over each one, whether it's changing the hi-hat ostinato or opening the hi-hat, adding in ghost notes, modifying the bass drum pattern, whatever. Be creative and be able to play the drumline doubles at 120 beats per minute. Be able to play the alternating flam and flam taps at 210 beats per minute. And as an extra assignment, play the rhythm scale of quarter notes, quarter note triplets, eighth notes, eighth note triplets, and 16th notes, all in alternating flams at 100 beats per minute. Thanks, have fun, and we'll see you next week.